Welcome to Phambili, the building of a Wharram Tiki 38 catamaran.
In part 1 we laminated our beam webs. We also laminated up our flanges on those beams and glued in the beam inserts. In part 2 we are
designing and making the stirrup, which is just an extra support for the mast casing. So it's going to go onto beam 2 and it's going to look something similar to that.
The mast case primarily rests on top of the beam, well, here and here. So we want to go for the triple box one, but just to remove the stressorizer problem with these corners that come over here, we're going to allow the mast case to rest both here, on top of the beam, and in the stirrup as well. Just beef it up. We'll do that the same on the fore end of beam 2 and the aft end of beam 1. In the corners, scrape the sides. You'd think by now we'd have a better idea of what quantities to use, but it's hit and miss, how does it feel sort of thing. The trouble is when you put too much powder in, then you can't just pour in a bit of resin and a bit of hardener and mix it all in. You've got to mix that new lot of resin and hardener separately again and then pour that in. Yep, there we go.
The first thing we did with our brand new belt sander was to jam a dust sheet in it. But the plan to make the lugs up was to glue 2 boards of Quila together, they're hardwoods, and we wanted to laminate the ridged sections together. It would give us the same effect as increasing the glue area that a scarf would. So here we were puzzling out just how to cut these lugs, where they were going to fit, what lengths they had to be, and where their fastenings were going to go in.
But the length that they call
We
for
find
there
that there's
is
heaps of room
on
on the lower
Scale the
sides of the beams in order to be able to put in a third fastener into the lower flange.
It ends at the radius.
Not quite, it's 225 there, if you look here on here.
Yeah, so I'm getting the bottom there. You see where the fiberglass finishes off? Yeah, that's where the radius goes. So can we terminate it neatly there? That's the question.
Jeez, how solid was that?
Yeah. Be enough to do all the engine box mounts on beam 1. A bit steamy, eh? See around there? There we go. She's stuck in.
Facing the right way.
Yeah. Unless we cut them, but I think you can actually put them out of the way and cut backwards with them if you have to. Clear everything. Yep. Alright, Cass, let's see how it goes. Should have a light. Oh, I've got to turn this one on, eh? Cool, right, one of the big bonuses of this machine is that you can like that. Let's see what it looks like. So that hole will be above there, I imagine.
We settled all the lugs into their position and then glued them and clamping them up using some old tricks learned along the way.
Is she all the way under there? Yep.
Like it.
Now I'm running up against this chuck.
Old school cordless. These passivated or galvanized lug screws are the only steel fastenings that we have left buried in the timberwork.
Whoa, smell that.
I ask how, and Kaz shows me. We've always found that putting down a base layer of resin before putting glass into that just seems to work a whole lot better for us.
And this is why Bruce's fillets look as nice as they do.
These lollipops.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bruce, for sharing that secret with us.
We glass like this, including the top and the bottom of the beam. Flip the whole beam over and do the other side again. That ensures that we've got two layers, top and bottom. We make sure that we feather it out over the corners, which gives us a nice strong corner edge.
Magic wand, specifically for this kind of nonsense. Guess what I'm doing? I'm mixing.
Again.
Kaz will say I'm stirring.
Once we've glassed, we sand in preparation for a barrier coat. Any defects reveal themselves here, and Kaz turns them into please help me faces and ticks. We finally get to cut the beams to length. Hey, snap! Once any repairs are made, we can carry on with our barrier coating. At this point, these beams are heavy and cumbersome and take some pretty careful manoeuvring. Despite our best efforts, the bubbles seem to have us beaten. We find that once we've scuffed them down in preparation for a primer, we're pretty good though. At around this stage, we get started on the lashing plates. I think I'll let the pictures do the talking and tell the story on this one. The basic structure of the beams is all pretty much the same. I'll try and just to show you the interesting parts that make up the bits of one beam or the other. Starting with the mast beam, all that's really different here is the mast step. Right, I wanted to sheath this in a layer of carbon fibre just because we had it. I was later to find out that it was totally unnecessary, but didn't do any harm. It's covered over with a layer of e-cloth. In the hollow in the aft side of the mast beam, I put in 3 large conduits so we could get services from hull to hull.
We are popping this Genoa sheet track onto this section on beam 2. The tracks come with I'm thinking it's a nylon or plastic of some sort insert just there. An M6 machine screw goes in there and protrudes 25 millimeters below that surface. So we took a piece of timber just to simulate the cross section of our beam, and what I did was I drilled a 15 millimeter hole in with a Forstner bit, and then went out and reamed out a plug shape using a dovetail bit for the router. Drilled and tapped a screw thread in. So there's no way for water ingress to come in via the screw thread and into the timber. So these holes, I did a very rough and rudimentary test we can show you. They did strip out, these 3 stripped out. This one here, a whole lot easier than I'd hoped it would, but this epoxy is less than 24 hours. It's 404 epoxy. We've decided, we've learned a few things from these tests. Number 1 is to create a little bit of a tape dam so that we fill up the excess as the timber soaks in the resin out of the mix, those bubbles. It would be nice if we could get rid of them, so we'll pour in a whole lot slower and possibly give it a bit of a stir up with a cocktail stick or something along those lines. But yeah, that represents 25 millimeters of depth. The taper section of the plug was just to give the epoxy plug itself a little bit of extra purchase in the timber. I don't think that is going anywhere anytime soon.
We drilled and routed out the holes for our epoxy dovetail plugs. Figured a way to create dams that would allow us to overfill ever so slightly. In order to stop paint from blocking up the threads, we decided to drill and tap only after we'd painted. I think I've thrown you out of sync here a little bit. We've obviously had to prepare and sand and prime this beam, or all the beams really, before we get going on the painting. So just for your viewing pleasure, here it is. We undercoated or primed with Transamarine 199 epoxy undercoat. It serves as a primer and an undercoat at one hit, and takes the International Perfection directly on top of that after a very light sanding. As usual, before we paint the top coat, we try to get rid of as much of the dust as we possibly can, just to keep things a little cleaner. This is the mast beam. It's upside down. You'll notice at the aft end of it we've run 3 large conduits so that we can move services from one hull to another. The blue tape sections that you see are EPDM rubber strips that have been bonded onto the aft end of the beam to rub against the similar strips on the forward end of the pod.
The last of our beams, getting a lick of paint. The mast beam making coming to an end.
It's been a much more arduous and intricate, involved and back-breaking task than what we imagined it would be.
But this paint has just, it's just finishing off beautifully.
Yeah, this top paint is remarkable actually, this top coat. It sets out. It flattens and kind of glazes itself. It takes a little while. But if you come back and look at this patch that we've just painted over in good detail, half an hour or so, you'll see just how much it flattens.
And then we can start another exciting project. Start of stage 2. We are going to be building the engine boxes that go between beam 2 and the mast beam. And we've set up the beams outside here, and this is the space that we're going to be working between. So on to phase 2. Woohoo! At the garage now empty of beams. We need to just do the last tidy up here and get ourselves reset so that we can start pulling out these boards that have been stacked here and waiting, and they're going to be part of the next phase.
If you enjoyed this video, please remember to click on like, share and subscribe. Next up will be the building of the mast case.